There are probably examples where we don't see racism, or at least not in a way that we would understand it. So I think I highlight that because part of our work as well, and working in these trainings, working with individuals who come from all different kinds of perspectives and backgrounds, and with that advent of using Zoom technology from across the globe, and either they are from a certain location, they're dialing in from there, or they grew up in Alabama or Georgia or Mississippi, and they're now in Sweden or Japan, or just to throw out some different possible examples. The experience that they might be bringing might not fit into what we would describe as racism that needs to be dismantled, but in the sort of back and forth that's so beautiful about the training is learning from those people, and learning from any and all experiences to see like what exists and what's possible. Being introduced to the idea of these dismantling racism trainings, that was intriguing in its own right, but the big attraction was from seeing the class firsthand. So, and the first time that I participated in it was as a training co-facilitator. So, getting to sit in on a class, answer all the questions, do all the introspection, and then just being sold on the work being done, and seeing that this is real work, this is based on history, this is based on precedents, this is based on academic understandings, this is based on the marketplace understandings of ideas, including racism, as well as capitalism, as well as all other parts of our human society. So just being able to kind of express, with God's help, the kind of mercy that kind of has to go into the work as well, which I think is present in the co-facilitating class as it exists, and also just like present in the undergirding of the work of the center too. It's been amazing, I'd say, just in learning from people's experiences, but also learning from my own experiences. One of the questions that's asked is, when was the first time that you knew race was a real thing? And that's just a paraphrase of the question. But for someone who grew up in suburban Atlanta, in the South, right, and specifically for me in Fayette County, it was just a part of life. And I was raised with parents who taught my sister and me to be proud to be Black. And that was something that I carried with pride and continue to carry with pride today. And seeing some participants really get it in real time is its own sort of heartening thing to see. It's like, because we understand that people are going to take what they learn from the class and process it in their own ways. It might be within the class that they realize one thing about their life or one thing about society. It might be right after the class. It might be a week, a month, 6 months, a year or so before they recognize and make connection points of like, okay, this is how I live my life. This is how the structures of our society have been built. This is how it affects people I live and work with, and people I go to church with, and people I love. So just being able to appreciate that people have their own timelines, their own understandings, that they're bringing something to the table that might be very different from what I have. If just dismantling racism were easy, we wouldn't have a center. We'd be able to put resources toward other things. And that even goes back to Martin Luther King Jr. He could have been, say, a marketing expert CMO for General Motors, for instance. That could have been a life track of his, given his talents. So that's the preface. It's not easy. The body of the argument that I would make for someone getting into this work is that if you can recognize that it's not easy, and recognize that it requires patience, recognize that people, for one reason or another, haven't been trained up or learned even necessarily that race is a thing to be thought about, that folks are even coming from that perspective, that it's such meaningful work, because that is how through this work is how we get to a more whole society. It's such meaningful work and such impactful work, and it's meaningful for the individuals, for their communities, and it's also impactful for the individuals, their communities, including that and those of the facilitators.